You've been taught to be nice. From childhood, from family, from media, from school. Be a good girl. Don't speak too loud. Say sorry even when it's not your fault. It's subtle, but it's everywhere. The conditioning runs deep, so deep that many women don't even question it. They just absorb it, adapt to it, and perform it. And somewhere along the way, you start confusing being AF nice with being AF kind. You start believing that your worth is tied to how comfortable you make other people feel. But let me say this clearly. Yes, being nice is not the same thing as being kind. One is rooted in fear, the other in strength. Nice is what you do to avoid conflict. Kind is what you do to uphold integrity. Big difference. Niceness often comes at the cost of authenticity. It's the silent agreement you make with the world. I'll make myself small if you promise to like me. It looks like agreeing when you want to disagree. Laughing when you're uncomfortable. Going along with things that make your gut twist because you don't want to rock the boat. But that boat, that's your life. And if you're not the one steering it, you're going to drown in everyone else's expectations. Being too nice is a form of self-abandonment. It's an identity built not on who you are, but on who others need you to be in order to feel safe, loved, or approved of. You begin outsourcing your voice to the comfort of others. And here's the tragic irony: the more agreeable you become, the more invisible you feel. You end up giving so much of yourself away that there's nothing left to stand on. And the world loves a nice woman, not because she's respected, but because she's easy to control. She says yes without question. She makes excuses for bad behavior. She over-functions in relationships. She lowers her standards to preserve peace. She apologizes just for existing too boldly. That's not virtue. That's social training. That's survival. And it's exhausting. Let's look at it psychologically. When you're constantly prioritizing other people's comfort over your truth, your nervous system is in a low-grade state of threat. You're scanning every interaction for approval. You're bracing for disapproval. That tension, that chronic self-monitoring, chips away at your sense of self. And slowly you lose access to your internal compass. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What would make them happy with me?" And it's not just emotional, it's philosophical. When you are overly nice to avoid discomfort, you're no longer operating from principle. You're operating from permission. That is a reactive life, not a conscious one. A person who constantly prioritizes harmony over honesty is living a performative existence. Niceness, in that way, becomes a moral costume. You look like you're kind, but underneath, you're suppressing truth, fear, and even anger. That silent frustration builds. It festers. You feel taken for granted, but you keep saying yes. You feel hurt, but you tell yourself, it's fine. You keep showing up with a smile, but your soul is tired. Why? Because niceness doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. It locks you into a loop of unmet needs and chronic resentment. And here's the brutal truth: people can sense it. People can feel when your yes isn't real. They might not say it, but they act on it. And the more you betray yourself for others, the more they come to expect that betrayal from you. You weren't born nice. You were born whole, curious, honest, unfiltered. And then the world told you, tone it down. Don't be difficult. Don't be too emotional, too intense, too assertive. And you learned, not directly, but through small corrections, that your full expression was too much. So you edited yourself, watered yourself down, and over time you wore your niceness like armor, to stay safe, to be accepted. But here's what they never taught you: you don't owe anyone your dilution. Real kindness is powerful. It's rooted in clarity, not compliance. It's generous, not performative. Kindness allows you to say no with love, to hold boundaries with compassion, to speak truth with grace. That's strength. And that's what people actually trust. Not the woman who nods at everything, not the one who avoids confrontation, but the one who knows who she is and refuses to contort herself to fit the room. Being nice might get you liked, but being honest, being grounded in your values, gets you respected. And that's the turning point. When you stop prioritizing being liked and start prioritizing being aligned, everything changes. Your relationships shift, your self-respect grows, your energy returns. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-giving. You realize that true connection only happens when you show up as your whole self, not just the pleasant parts. So the next time you're about to say yes out of guilt or not out of fear or smile through discomfort, pause. Ask yourself, am I being kind or am I being nice? Am I honoring truth or avoiding tension? Because that question, that inner check-in, is the beginning of a different life, one where your voice is not a liability, but a compass. You were not put here to be palatable. You were put here to be powerful. And power doesn't apologize for taking up space. So stop being nice. Start being real. That's where your freedom lies. We need to talk about this habit, the automatic yes, the quick agreement, the smile that says, sure, no problem. When deep down your body is screaming, not again. Let's call it what it is, as people-pleasing. It looks polite, it feels generous. But underneath, it's often a chronic pattern of emotional self-abandonment. And for so many women, especially those who've been raised to be nice, this behavior becomes default. You end up saying yes not because you want to, but because you're afraid of what will happen if you say no. Now, it's important to get something straight, people. Pleasing isn't kindness. It's not nobility. It's fear in disguise, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing someone and being labeled as difficult, selfish, or too much. And here's the hard truth. Every time you say yes to something that hurts you, you're not being kind. You're participating in your own erosion. Gus, you're sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort. You're trading authenticity for approval. And the longer you live like that, the more you lose sight of who you really are. This isn't just emotional. It's deeply psychological. Let's break it down. When you prioritize others' needs over your own repeatedly, your brain starts to associate saying no with danger. Your nervous system gets activated. You feel guilty, anxious, even panicked. Why? Because somewhere in your past, maybe childhood, maybe a toxic relationship, you were taught that disagreeing equals rejection, that standing up for yourself equals abandonment. So now, even when you're an adult, that emotional wiring is still in place. You don't want to say yes, but you do, not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is trying to protect you from an old threat. But here's the paradox. The more you try to avoid rejection by pleasing everyone, the more you reject yourself. It's a slow erosion. You start small, doing things you don't want to do, accepting treatment you shouldn't tolerate, bending, shrinking, staying quiet. But over time, that pattern adds up. And one day, you wake up and realize you don't even know what your own needs are anymore. Because you've spent so long trying to be what others want you to be, you forgot what it feels like to want something for yourself. And let's talk about where this leads: resentment. Deep, quiet, invisible resentment. You're exhausted. You're emotionally depleted. You're doing everything for everyone and still feeling unseen, unappreciated, even used. And maybe you start telling yourself, I just need to be stronger, or I shouldn't feel this way. But the truth is, you're not feeling that way because you're too emotional. You're feeling that way because your boundaries are being violated, and you're the one allowing it. People pleasing is not generosity. It's a coping mechanism. It's what happens when your self-worth is tied to external validation. You believe your value comes from being useful, agreeable, needed. So you hustle for worthiness. You overextend, overcommit, over-apologize, and you call it love. But love doesn't ask you to disappear. Respect doesn't require self-erasure. Real connection can't grow in a space where your needs are always on mute. Now let's shift the lens. What if you started treating your no like a sacred act? Not an attack, not a rejection, but a boundary, a declaration: I am not for everyone, and that's okay, because here's the secret no one told you. Healthy people will respect your boundaries. Only the manipulative ones punish you for having them. Only those who benefit from your silence will resent your voice. And that's how you know the difference between someone who values you versus someone who just values your compliance. Philosophically, this is about sovereignty, the ability to govern your own life without outsourcing your decisions to others' emotions. When you live to please, you are not free. You're a puppet pulled by invisible strings of guilt, fear, and obligation. But when you begin to say no, not out of rebellion, but out of alignment, those strings start to break. You stop performing. You start living. Yes, it's uncomfortable at first. You might feel guilt. You might face pushback. That's normal, because every system resists change, including emotional systems. But discomfort is not the enemy. A discomfort is the cost of reclaiming your power, das. And let's be honesty, you can either feel the temporary discomfort of disappointing others or live with the permanent pain of disappointing yourself. That's the real choice. So the next time you're asked to do something, don't answer immediately. Pause. Check in with yourself. Ask, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Because every yes is also a no. And if your yes is costing you your peace, your energy, your authenticity, it's not a kind yes. It's a toxic one. Start with small no's. No to that phone call when you're drained. No to that favor that feels like manipulation. No to being available all the time. Every time you say no, you're saying yes to your values, yes to your sanity, yes to your wholeness. And that's not selfish, that's sacred. Remember this: saying no doesn't make you unkind. Saying no makes you honest. And honest women, not nice ones, are the ones who change their lives. So stop saying yes to what hurts. You don't have to earn love through your sacrifice. You are allowed to disappoint others and still be a good person. You are allowed to choose yourself fully, unapologetically, consistently, because the world doesn't need more nice women, it needs more whole women. Let's talk about something that a lot of nice women avoid: boundaries. The very word makes some people tense up. It feels cold, rigid, harsh, and if you've been raised to be accommodating, nurturing, agreeable, you've probably internalized the belief that setting boundaries means you're being mean, that it's selfish, that it's unloving, that it's not feminine, but that's a lie, a deep one, a dangerous one. Because here's the truth: RSS boundaries are not the opposite of kindness. They're the evidence of self-respect of sex, and without self-respect, everything else crumbles. Your confidence, your relationships, your peace of mind, they all depend on your ability to draw a line and hold it. Because if you don't protect your space, no one else will. See, nice women, or rather, women who've been taught to perform niceness, are often deeply uncomfortable with the word and no. They fear it will push people away. They think, if I speak up, if I draw that line, they'll leave, they'll get upset, they'll call me difficult. So they stay silent. They say yes. They go along. They sacrifice little pieces of themselves every day until one day they don't recognize who they are anymore. Let's be clear: boundaries are not walls. They are not about shutting people out. They are about letting the right people in on your terms. A boundary is a filter, not a fortress. And when you set one, you're not saying, I don't care about you. You're saying, I also care about me. Philosophically, boundaries represent one of the most powerful declarations a human being can make. So I am responsible for myself, my emotions, my time, my energy. They are mine to steward. That's not control. That's ownership. And when you take ownership of your life, you stop allowing other people to write your story. Psychologically, boundaries are essential to mental health. Without them, we're constantly reacting instead of choosing. We feel anxious, resentful, overwhelmed. We say yes too often, not out of generosity, but out of guilt. And guilt, unprocessed, chronic guilt, becomes a tool others can use to manipulate us. And some people will. They'll guilt you, shame you, make you feel like having needs is a problem. Like your no is personal, but it's not. Your no is not rejection, it's information, it's clarity. It tells others where your limits are, and it tells you that your well-being matters. Because if your kindness doesn't include yourself, it's not kindness, it's martyrdom. And martyrdom is not healthy, it's not noble, it's a quiet form of self-erasure. And here's what no one talks about: the people who get most upset by your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. They're not mad because you were wrong. They're mad because the dynamic is shifting. Because now, for the first time, they're being asked to meet you on equal ground. And if someone needs you to be powerless in order to love you, that's not love. That's control. So yes, setting boundaries will shake things up. Some relationships might shift. Some people might leave. But what remains, what survives the honesty of your boundaries, will be real. It will be rooted in mutual respect, not codependence. And isn't that what you truly want? To be loved not for how convenient you are, but for who you really are. Now, let's talk about what boundaries actually look like in real life. Because they're not always loud. You don't need to make a dramatic announcement. You don't need to justify or explain. A boundary can be simple, quiet, direct. No, I'm not available this weekend. I'm not comfortable with that conversation. I need some time to myself. I can't commit to that right now. That's it. That's the whole sentence. You don't owe anyone a long backstory. You don't need to apologize for protecting your time or energy. In fact, when you start over explaining your boundaries, you're often trying to convince someone that you're allowed to have needs. And you are. You've always were. You just forgot. The real work is internal. Boundaries aren't just about what you say to others. They're about what you say to yourself. They're about knowing your limits and honoring them, even when no one is watching. Because when you start showing up for yourself consistently, your self-trust grows. And that self-trust, that's the foundation of everything: confidence, resilience, emotional peace. You see, for a long time you were told that being a good woman means being flexible, accommodating, emotionally available at all times. But being a good woman, a whole woman, also means having a spine, having standards, knowing when to walk away. And walking away doesn't make you hard, it makes you whole. Because love without boundaries isn't love, it's desperation. And you weren't put here to beg for scraps of respect. You were made to walk with dignity. And if that dignity costs you some people, so be it. Let them leave. Let what isn't aligned fall away. You don't need to explain your growth to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You are not mean for drawing the line. You are not selfish for needing space. You are not cold for saying enough. You are awake. You are done performing. You are reclaiming your space in a world that taught you to shrink. So here's the bottom line. Your boundaries are not a rejection of others. They are a deep acceptance of yourself. And that self-acceptance is the most powerful thing a woman can possess.